Hi, welcome to today's video. My name is Paul. So this week again, as you can see, some acrylic landscape painting. As I said maybe 2 weeks ago, I really want to get into this acrylic painting. It's just, I'm not trying to give up watercolor or charcoal or anything. It's just adding another medium. So as I say, I already use the charcoal and the watercolor on a pretty regular basis. I also use soft pastels, okay. Admittedly, I don't use them that often, but I do occasionally use them, and acrylic is just the fourth medium to add to that. As I said, it's just, I think each of the different media have different characteristics, and there's ways of expressing myself with the different materials. Things I can maybe do with acrylic that I wouldn't be able to do with the other three mediums, for example. And as I said before, I'm still at the very early stages of acrylic, so I'm still trying to discover how to use it effectively. Pretty limited palette again. You can sort of see it on the left hand side there. In the description box below, I've got a list of the colors that I'm using. They're all by a company called Daler Rowney, and I think the specific brand is called Cryla, C-R-Y-L-A. As I say, all of the information's in the description box below. The piece of paper, as you can see, it's just a piece of paper that I tore off. I had a large sheet of, I say paper, it's like very thin cardboard. I just tore it off just to practice with. I don't really want to go out and spend money on nice paper or canvas when I'm still at a stage where I really don't know how to use acrylic. I'm just trying to get the hang of it. To be honest, I'm not even sure if I will be able to get the hang of it or if I'll give up with acrylic. Who knows? So anyway, I'm just using little scrap bits of paper and things like this. So I don't expect this to, even if I like the final results, I don't expect them to survive that long, because it's not artist quality material. Cardboard like this is going to fall apart after a while. The only piece of advice I can give on acrylic at the moment is, it's something that I've come across from different YouTube videos and blogs and things, people who use acrylic on a regular basis. The one thing that they all seem to agree on is, yes, acrylic is a water-soluble paint. However, you've got to be really careful with the amount of water that you're using. You can dilute the paint with water, but when you do that, it's not as stable. When it dries, it doesn't bind onto the paper or the canvas as well as it could. The number of molecules of paint, if you like, per square inch or per square centimeter is reduced when you add the water, when you dilute it. And because you've got fewer molecules, there's less binding between the paint and the surface that you're painting on. So people do say that they can find that acrylic that uses a lot of water can start to flake off and things after a while. I don't know how long they're talking about. I don't know if they mean next week, next year, or 20 years from now. But they do all seem to agree that adding too much water is not a good idea with acrylic. At the moment, that's the only advice that I can pass on. I don't know anything else about acrylic, really. I have been doing a little bit of research on the history of acrylic, and it's not that old compared to a lot of the other mediums that we're familiar with. Obviously, oil paint, watercolor, this has been around for a long time. Even soft pastels and of course charcoal has been around for a very long time. Cave drawings were done with charcoal, so it's been around for thousands of years. But even something like soft pastels has been around much longer than acrylic paint has. Although the first acrylic resins were created by a German chemical company back in the 19th century, it wasn't really until the late 1920s, early 1930s that the first acrylic paint was produced. And it wasn't produced for artists. It was produced for specific sort of industrial processes and things. By the 1940s, they did have a water-soluble acrylic paint, but it was really going into the 1950s before this was manufactured and marketed at artists specifically. Some of the early adopters of the new medium included a few of the sort of Mexican muralists from the sort of 1950s, that sort of period, and then some people associated with abstract expressionism. So for example, Mark Rothko, he did some acrylic painting, and then also some of the people associated with pop art, so Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein, David Hockney, people like that started using some acrylic as well. But as I say, it was really 1950s or 1960s before artists really got their hands on acrylic paint and started using it. In terms of popularity, I don't know how popular it is. There's certainly lots of YouTube channels on painting with acrylic paint, but I still get the feeling that watercolor and oil are more popular and used by more people maybe. But anyway, I'm still discovering more and more about acrylic paint and how to use it. And there'll be more videos in the future about acrylic painting. If you stuck with me with this one, thank you for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video.